Hi everyone, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to be discussing about one preprocessor called as hash define. So hash define, we also call it as a macro constant. So the main purpose of hash define within a program is to create macros. Okay, I have a program. I want to create certain macros in my program. How to do it? With the help of hash define. So first, before going into that, let us understand what is a macro. So a macro is nothing but a constant value or an expression. So we already know what you mean by the word constant. So constant means something that is fixed or something which cannot be modified is what we call as a constant. So this macro gives us another way of creating constant values within a program. So we have already seen creating constant values, one with the keyword called as const. We created constant variables over there using that keyword. So once the variable is having some values, that becomes fixed and the values cannot be changed throughout the program. So like that, we used to create constant variables. Similarly, macros gives us another option, another way of creating constant values. But here there are few differences between a constant variables and a macro constant, which we will be discussing further in this video. So first point, what you have to know is hash define is a preprocessor. And what is the purpose of hash define? Hash define is used to create macros within our program. And what is a macro? A macro is nothing but a constant value or an expression. Right. So now, how does macro actually works? So wherever we are going to make use of this macro in the program. See, for a macro, of course, you will give a name. Like how we give a name for our variables. The same way, the macro constant value which we are creating, we are going to give a name for that. So wherever this name is used within our source code, so within the program, wherever this name is going to be used, the preprocessor is going to replace that name with the value. See, we are going to create a name with some constant, with a fixed value for that name. So that is what your macro is. So wherever we have made use of this name inside of the program, the preprocessor will replace the name with its equivalent value. This is how the macro is going to be working in our programs. Right, so let us try to understand this with some programs and some examples. Right, going further into it, there are two ways in which we can create this macros. So using this hash define, we can create two types of macros. The first type is what we call as an object-like macros. Object-like macros are nothing but similar to our variables. See, I'm not saying it is our variable. I am saying it is similar to our variables. Right. The second type of macros what we can create is something called as a function like macros. So how a function is going to work, in that way we can create our macros also. So this is what we are going to be seeing next. How to create an object like macro and how to create a function like macros. Right. Now, first one, object like macros. As I told you, it is like a variable name. Right. What we are going to do, what is the syntax? Hash define. So first we are going to use hash define. Then we are going to give a name. We are going to give a name that is an identifier. Right. Then we are going to give the value for that identifier. That's it. See here very carefully, no data type. We are not going to mention any data type. There is no semicolon, nothing. The syntax is different from that of my variables. So please see this carefully. Hash define is the preprocessor which we are going to use, followed by a name, then followed by a value. Right. Now, one important point you should know about this. That is, whenever we are going to give a constant value, okay, whenever we are planning to create some constant macros or even a constant variables, we try to give the name in capital letters. It is not 100% mandatory rule, but it is one of the best practices. That is to identify, okay, this is a normal variable, this is a constant variable, or this is a constant macro. So to identify between the names. So that is the reason why what we are doing, whenever we are planning to create either a macro constant or a constant variable, whichever it is, we always try to give the identifier in capital letters. Right, so look at some examples here what I have done. So I am saying hash defined max. Max is the name of my constant 50. So 50 is the value that I am assigning it to max. Now look at the next one. I am saying hash defined pi 3.1415. So again, this is a floating point value. The first one is an integer macro. This is a float macro. Now see the third one. I am saying hash defined name within double quotes. I am giving instax. So within double quotes, group of characters, what it is? Strings. Right. Then see about the fourth one. Hash define gender within single quotes, single character. So char data type. Right. So macro constants can be of any data type. Okay, whatever value you are going to give, based on the value, the data type is automatically decided. You do not have to specify the data type. So when we are creating the constant, there is no need for us to specify any data type. All we have to do is use the hash to find, because that is the preprocessor which is used to create our constant, then the name of the constant, then the value of the constant. So this is how I will create object like macros. Right, so let us try to make use of it within a program. Now, have a look at this example. Here, what is that I'm doing? I am saying hash define x 100. So, first macro constant, second macro constant, hash define name instax. Now, first point, what you have to notice is, see where I have created this macro constant. Which location have I created this macro constant? On top of the main. So this is the area where we create our macro constants. Always right below our header files. You remember the program structure where we saw different sections? So yes, hope you remember. So this is the place where I am going to create my macro constants. Right, now see how I'm making use of it within a program. So first thing I'm saying within the main function, printf x is equal to. Now, why am I making use of percentage %d? Because x is the name of my macro constant, right? So that is having a value called 100. And 100 is what type of a value? It is a whole number. So whole number means obviously it is an integer, int data type. So for int data type, what is the format specifier I make use of? Percentage %t. So that is what I said you have to remember. Whenever you're creating the macro constant, you will not mention any data type. So based on the value given to it, while making use of it, that is why printing it, you will decide the data type that is required. Right, so now what is going to happen? What did I say the macro constant is? Wherever we are using that name, within the program, wherever you are making use of the name, the value of the constant is going to get replaced. So when this program is going to be compiled, so before the process of compilation, because remember, it is a preprocessor. So preprocessor means what? Before the pre means something which is going to happen before. So before this program is going to go for compilation, what is the preprocessor going to do? Wherever you have used this macro name within the program, in all those places, this name will be replaced by this value 100. So here I have used x, so this 100 value will come and get replaced here. Then look at the third print statement. Here I am saying x plus 500. So again, in this place of the x, 100 value is going to get replaced. Right. So now look at the second print statement. I'm saying company name is, then percentage yes. Why? Because it is a string value. The name, I'm using the macro constant called as name, and name constant is a string value. So that is the reason why I'm using percentage yes. Again, before the program goes for compilation, what is going to happen? This value in stacks will get replaced in the place of this name. And then once all the replacement is done, then my compiler will do the process of compilation and it will check, okay, no error, then it is going to produce the output. So the output of the program will be something like this. So because the value of X is 100, then the company name is Instax, and here the value is X plus 500. So X value is what? 100. So 100 plus 500, which is nothing but 600. So this is how we are going to be creating and making use of our macro constants within a program. So let us also run this program once. Okay, so I'm going to just execute and show you this program. See the same program, what they just showed you in the presentation. Let us just run this. Okay, and see what is the output we are getting. Look here. So we are getting the output as same thing what we saw. Right, now let us try to modify the values. Okay, let us try to modify the value. So I am saying X, or first let us print the value of X in the next line. In the next line, I am saying X is equal to 800. I'm saying X is equal to 800. What is this X? See, I'm using a capital X. So capital X is what? Nothing but this macro constant what I have created here. Now when I run this program, see what happens. What does this say? It is not possible for us. See, it's not able to recognize this command at all. It is not possible for us to change the value of a macro constant like this. It is not possible because here I have created, see, this is the name, this is the value. So it is fixed, it is a constant value. I cannot modify the value of X within my program. If I try to do that, it is going to end up throwing errors for me. That is the reason why we are calling it as a constant. Right. Okay. Now let us see one more example for it. Okay. Now in this example, what are we going to do? Please see here, we are using two preprocessors here. One preprocessor, what we have used? Hash define. Another preprocessor, what we are using? Hash undef. See here, I am making use of two preprocessors. Now, what is this hash undef? So, hash define is used to create a macro constant. Now, I want to modify or I want to change the value of this X. It is not possible for me to do it because the last program, last example I showed you, when I tried to modify, what happened? It was throwing me some errors. So it was not allowing me to change it. Now, how to change it or what to do in order for me to change it is, I can redefine it. It is possible for me to redefine it. But for me to redefine it, I have to follow certain steps. What is the step is, first I have to use the hash undef preprocessor and release the value that has been assigned to the CX. Here hash define. Define means what? Definition. So you are creating a constant. Then what you're doing, whatever is the value of that constant. So first with this hash define, I am creating a macro constant, right? So after creating this constant, what is the next line here? I'm doing inside the main function, value of X. Then I am printing. So you know what is going to happen? Replacement. So the 30 is going to come here in the place of this X and it is going to print me the value of X 30. Now, next step what I'm doing, hash undef of X. So what is this? Undefining a macro constant. That is, whatever value that has been associated with that X, I am releasing that value. I am making X as nothing. So now X is not going to hold any value at all. So after releasing the value, I am redefining it. I am going to give a new value for my X variable. So I'm going to redefine it. So now I'm saying what? Hash define X 300. So from 30, I am modifying the value of X to 300. Right. So now when I print the value of X, it is going to print me the value as 300. So remember, this is not possible with our constant variables. When we create a constant variable, it is not possible for me to redefine it. But with a macro constant, it gives me this flexibility also. Directly when I'm changing, No, it is not going to work. So how? I have to follow this procedure. Right, so hash define preprocessor, hash undef preprocessor. So let us try to execute this program also. Right, so let me just, there you go. I'm just going to copy this code and I'm going to try to execute this. There you go, same program. So first creating a macro constant, then I'm printing the value. So whatever is the current value, then I am releasing the value, then I am reassigning the value for it. Now let us run it. See what happens. Right, now look at this one also. When I'm going to reassign, I am giving the value like this. So first time I said x is 30. Then I am printing the value of x. Then I am undefining x. Then when I'm assigning another value, look at the value what I'm giving, 30.56. Now I'm going to print the value of x. Run this. See what is it you're getting. Again, a flexibility. Why? Because your macro constant is not associated with any data type. If it is a variable, can you do this? Is it possible for us to do the same thing with a variable? No. Because in a variable, when I'm creating a variable, I have to give the data type. I have to fix a data type of that variable. When I'm creating int A can accept only whole numbers. It can be 10, it can be 20, it can be 100,000, anything, but only whole numbers. But here with our macro constant, since it is not associated with any data type, when I am redefining it, I can even change the type of the value that my constant is going to be holding. Right, so these are the advantages I get in order for me to use the macro constants. Right, so this is a simple object-like macro constant that I'm going to be creating. Next thing is function-like macros. Again, a very, very common thing that is used in our codes is a function-like macro. So how I'm going to create this? This is very, very similar to our functions. Okay, what we create functions in our program, this is very similar to that. So again, syntax is hash define, then followed by the token. The token is nothing but the name, like what we gave for the variable name, like a variable name we gave. Now, same way here, the token refers to the name. That is the function name that I'm going to give. Then within the parameters or within the parenthesis, okay, I can pass the arguments or parameters. Okay, parameters are what? The values of my function. Okay, the variables of my function is what we call as a parameter. Then followed by the statement. Statement is nothing but what is the purpose of creating the function. So I'm creating this function to add two numbers, to multiply number, to divide a number, to find the greatest of two numbers, or to find the greatest of three numbers, whatever it is. What is the purpose of creating that function? That is what you're going to be mentioning in this statement. So this is how I will be creating a function like macro. So how to do it? Hash define, because hash define is what is used to create a macro. So that is something you cannot forget. Followed by the name of the function. So whatever name you're planning to give for the function, give it. Then within the parenthesis, mention the variables or what we call as parameters. So how many variables this function is going to have, or how many values we are going to give for the function, that you're going to mention here. Okay, there is no restriction. You can give n number of parameters. Then purpose of creating the function. Right, say for example, look at this example here. So I am saying hash define sum. Remember what I told you? Whenever you're creating a macro constant, you have to give the name in capital case. So here, that is the reason I'm giving the name as sum in capital letters. Then this sum function takes two values. The two values are going to be stored in the variable a and b. So that is why I'm saying a comma b. And what is the purpose of creating this function? I am just going to add the value of a and b. So whenever I'm using this function, the two values that I'm going to give for this function are going to be added and the result is going to be given back to me. That is what this function is going to be doing. Right, same way. Look at the first one. Hash define max a comma b. So again, max, name of my function, a comma b are the two values that I'm going to give. Then what is that I'm doing here? I am checking which is the greatest. Remember our conditional operators. We looked into the operators, right? So this is a conditional operator. So this is our condition, a greater than b. If this condition is true, it will return the value of a. If the condition is false, it is going to return the value of b as a result. So this is how I will be creating our function like macros. Right. Let us see some examples. Let us try to understand it better with examples. Now, look at the first one here. So what is that I'm saying? Hash define multiply. Remember, I told you it is not 100% mandatory rule that you have to use only capital case. It is one of the best practices. So here, just to show you the difference, I am using small case letters here. Okay, so yum alone is in capital, all the other things is in small letters. So it's your choice. But the best practices suggest that we should always use capital letters for it. Now, come to our program. Now I have created the function like macro or the macro function. So what is that I'm doing here? I am saying int r. Okay, int r. Int r is a variable that is going to store the result. So this function, this multiply is going to give me some result, right? It is going to multiply x and y and it is going to give me the result. So where am I going to store the result? The result is going to be stored inside this variable r. So that is the reason I'm saying int r is equal to multiply of. So that is nothing but the name of my macro. So multiply of 2 comma 3. So what is going to happen? The value 2 is going to go and get stored inside x. The value 3 is going to go and get stored inside this y. Then it is going to say x into y. That is 2 into 3. So whatever is the result, that result will be coming and getting stored inside this variable r. Then I'm just printing the value of r here. Right, same way. This is one method of calling it. This is one way of calling the function. Now, look what is the other one I'm doing. Other method is, instead of storing the result in a variable, why to waste a memory space? I am saying directly call the function. Directly call the function in the print statement itself. So, whatever value this multiply is going to return or it is going to give back, that value will be captured by this percentage t. The value is going to be captured by this percentage t and is going to get printed for us. So this is another way of calling our macro functions. So the result, first function 2 into 3, it is going to give me the result as 6. Then 5 comma 4. So 5 value will go to x, 4 value will go to y. So 5 into 4, that is going to give the result as 20. So this is how our program is going to be working for us. So function like macros. Right, so let us see one more example and try to understand this. Look at the program here. What is that I have done here? Hash define largest. Again, largest is the name of my function. So what is this function going to do? Again, this function is taking two values, that is x and y. Then I am checking which is the largest among these two. So find the greatest of the two numbers. So I am doing the comparison. If x greater than y, then obviously x is greatest. Print this statement. Yes, print y is greatest. Yes, so not only calculations or not only things, we can also have such kind of condition testing, such kind of printing the statements also using your macro functions. So now look at the value I'm calling. I'm calling the largest function. What are the values I'm passing? 50, 300. So 50 is going to go to my x, 300 is going to go to my y variable. Then 50 greater than 300. So the condition is going to be false. So when the condition is false, what is going to happen? Obviously, it is going to go and print that y is the greatest. So that is going to be your output. So remember one thing, whether it is an object like macro or whether it is a function like macro, Macro means replacement. So here, wherever I'm using the X, what is the value given to X? 50. So the 50 is going to get replaced. Wherever I'm using Y, the value 300 is going to be replaced. Then only it is going to do the checking conditions, everything. First, it will do the replacement and then it will check the condition and then produce the result. This is how these functions will be working for us. Right. So let us try to execute it also parallelly. Okay. Now let us go for the, yes. This is the first macro function program. Right. The multiplication one. Okay. So what I have done, just multiply result I'm storing inside our printing R and calling the function inside the print itself, the two ones. So when I execute it, see what is the result. Same as what we saw. This is how my program is going to be working for us. And also the greatest of two numbers. So run it. See, it says y is data. Now change the values. Change the value. Give 500, 30. Now run the code. So this time when I run the code, obviously x is the greatest. So the function is working perfectly. So both the values you can change and check out how the code is actually working for us. Right. Now, as I told you, macro is a replacement. So hope you have understood that. So just look at this one also. Okay. Now, can you guess what will be the output in this? Just take a second and before proceeding further in this video, just take a second, take a pause, see whether you are able to predict the output for this program and then you can continue playing the video. Okay, so what is happening here? I keep saying that macro is a replacement. Macro is going to do the work of replacement. So when I execute this, this is the output I will be getting. So it is not going to say 2 plus 3, 5. 5, 3 plus 5. Then I'm going to get a value 8. So it is not going to say 5 comma 8. Then I'm saying 5 into 8. No, don't do the calculation like this. If you are doing that, it's entirely wrong. Again and again, remember macro is replacement. So this 2 plus 3, whatever is the first value, 2 plus 3, this exact expression will go and get stored inside A. Same way, what is B? B is nothing but 3 plus 5. So now here, what is that I'm saying? A into B. That means, how is the expression going to come? You understand? 2 plus 3 into 3 plus 5. Because what is that I'm saying? A into B. So A into B means what? A value is what? 2 plus 3. What is B value? 3 plus 5. So you have to first do the replacement. After doing the replacement, only start working on the calculation. This is what I keep telling you guys. Okay, so now when I see this expression, what is that? Multiplication. Multiplication has a higher priority compared to my addition operator. So that is, it is going to perform the multiplication operation first. So 3 into 3, which is 9. So after finding that value, then 2 plus 9. So 11, 11 plus 5, 16. This is how the calculation will be working. Remember, macro means replacement. Don't do the calculation here itself. You have to, whatever expression you're giving, the expression is going to go and get stored inside this variables. And then you have to replace whatever the value is. Wherever you are making use of the variables, the value is going to get replaced in that. After the replacement only, it will do all the calculations. Right. So this is something which is very important and you have to remember. These type of questions are asked a lot in interviews as well as in predict the output programs. Right. So you should be confident enough to answer such kind of questions. Now, have a look at this one also. So here, what is that I'm giving? I am creating a function saying add. So add of x comma y. So what it is going to do? X plus y it is going to add. That's it. The macro function looks very simple. But see how I'm calling the function. I am saying 5 into add of 5 comma 10. So 5 is going to go to x, 10 is going to go to y. Okay, now what is going to happen? X plus y. So 5 plus 10. So 5 plus 10, 15. So 15 into 5? No. The answer what you're going to get for this is 35. So how 35? Again, remember expansion, then evaluation. So how is the function created? Add of x comma y. Okay, so how you are calling 5 into add of 5 comma 10. So x value is 5, y value is 10. Now look at the function 5 into x plus y. Right. So 5 into x plus y means what? 5 into 5 plus 10. Again, multiplication, higher priority. So 5 into 5, 25. So first that calculation will be done. Then only the addition operator is going to be applied. So that is why you are getting the result as 30. So these are some of the key points that we should be remembering whenever we are dealing with our macro constants, that is especially with our functions. Now, I have been telling you guys that constant variables is also another way. So now, what is the difference between a constant variables and a macro constant? I hope you guys remember constant variables. So how we used to create a constant variable? We have a keyword called as const. So we used to create it something like this, const, then data type, a variable name equals to some value we are going to give. Now what is going to happen? The const keyword means constant, fixed. So once we are assigning the value of a as 25, you cannot modify this inside of program. If you try to modify, okay, it is going to throw errors. Say for example, I'm saying a is equal to 36. Now run this. See what is happening. You are trying to change a read-only variable. So it is throwing an error. Read-only means what? You don't have the capacity to write the value. That is to change the value. You can only make use of this variable a. You cannot modify the value of a. So that is what you mean by constant variables. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to see the difference between a constant variables, that is variables created using this const keyword, and our macro constants. The examples what we have been seeing so far. Right. So let us go through some major differences. So the first difference is when I talk about a constant variable, of course, const keyword. I make use of the const keyword to create. When I talk about hash define, it is a macro constant. I use hash define. It is a preprocessor directive. Right, so we use hash define to create constant values. Second difference, when I create constant variables, who is going to handle the variables? Obviously the compiler. So the compiler is going to handle all my variables, right? But when I create a constant, when I create a macro, it is going to be handled by the preprocessor. Remember, before coming to the compilation process, okay, before coming to the compilation, all my macro constant values are getting replaced by my preprocessor. So whenever you create a constant, it is handled by my preprocessor. And whenever you create a constant variable, it is handled by our compiler. Right. Now, next important difference, scope. We have something which is called as a scope of a variable. So scope of a variable means where I can make use of that variable. I have a big program. The program consists of some 1,000 lines of code. So I am creating a variable. So in which are the locations that I can make use of that variable? Can I use it throughout the entire program? Or I can use it only in certain parts of the program? That is what is decided by the scope of a variable. So whenever you're creating a variable using the const keyword, you have the scope. That is, you have either a local or a global scope. As the word suggests, global means what? We can make use of it throughout the program, in the entire program. But when I am saying local, only inside of the function you're creating it. For example, okay, for examples, look here. I have created this A inside this main function. So the scope of this A is only within the main function. So I can make use of this a variable only inside the main, that is between the opening and the closing brackets of my main function. If I try to use it outside, it is going to end up throwing errors. So based on where I am going to create my constant variables, okay, we have scope. But when we come to our macro constants, they don't have any scope. They are not at all scope controlled. You can make use of it anywhere within the program. That is inside the main also. If you are creating your own functions, you can make use of them inside those functions also. So you don't have any scope, or you don't have any specific accessibility control. That is the advantage you get when you are dealing with a macro constant. Right. The next point is you cannot redefine or redeclare a constant variable. You see what happened in this scenario? When I'm going to recreate it, it is throwing me an error. Suppose if you are using the complete syntax also, look here, I'm using the complete syntax also. Now also see what happens. It doesn't allow me to do it. It is not possible for me to recreate it. So it is whatever the values I'm creating, it is like a fixed value. But with a macro constant, you remember hash undef. I have a preprocessor which allows me to change the value that has been defined. So that is another advantage I get with a macro constant. Right. So the next difference, which is very important, is whenever you create a variable using the const keyword, it occupies memory space. Obviously, it occupies memory space because every variable that we create in the program, definitely memory is going to get allocated for them. But macro constants will not take any memory. It is not a variable. It is just a name. It is a macro. It is just a name. So what is going to happen in my program is just replacement. Wherever that name is used, the value is going to get replaced. That's all. It does not require any memory space at all. So memory will get allocated only to the constant variables. For macro constant, no memory space is going to be allocated, or it is not at all required. So another major advantage that I have with my macro constant. Okay, and last but not the least, I have the concept which is called as pointers. Very, very important concept in our C language. Pointers. So pointers means accessing the address that has been allocated for a variable. So whenever you are creating a constant variable, I can apply the concept of pointers on them. Okay, the concept of pointers can be applied on const variables. But this is not possible with a macro. First thing, macro is not at all a variable. Second thing, macro is not going to have any address at all. It's not going to have any memory at all. Then where is the question of using pointers? So on a macro, you cannot apply the concept of our pointers. So these are all the differences that you should be knowing in creating a constant value, using the const keyword, and using our macros. So this is the complete details about your hash define. Right. Hope you have understood the concept clearly. Thank you and see you in the next video.